I want to talk to you today about memes. I want to talk about the power of memes and how memes can transform us. But in particular, I want to talk about how memes are transforming our democracy, how they're transforming the right to vote by creating a partisan feedback loop that's damaging how we talk to each other. And I want to talk about how to get out of that loop. But let's be honest for a minute. When I said I want to talk about memes, you weren't thinking about the right to vote, were you? Probably not. You were thinking about those pictures you see in your social media feed. You know, it's something cute and adorable, or it's provocative, and it has words on it, and the combination of the words and the picture makes you think of something. Take this, for example. Yeah, it's funny. It's cute, this adorable cat who's disappointed because Santa isn't going to take her up as one of the reindeer. You might want to spread this meme. You might even switch cat for dog. And as it spreads, the more and more people who love this will say, "Oh yeah, right, this is fantastic." And if enough people under the right circumstances do it, it goes viral, right? And so that is a powerful thing. And it's powerful not because it's true, not because there's Santa, but because it appeals to our emotions. It changes our thinking. It short circuits our thinking. Now, my argument to you today is very simple. The idea of rampant in-person voter impersonation fraud is a meme. The idea itself is a meme. It does the exact same things. It transforms our thinking. It inspires us to spread it, and we have a debate about that and not about what the right to vote should be. Case in point, the President of the United States, before and after the election, argued that there was rampant voter fraud. In fact, after the election, he tweeted this and many more tweets, saying that over 3 million people voted illegally, thus shifting the results of the election. It has made a powerful statement in our society. In fact, it's the justification for the convening of an election commission to question from the ground up how we vote in America today. Now, this isn't the first time we've had this meme of voter fraud impact our elections. Think back to the election of 2000. But don't think about Florida, though. Think about Missouri. Then Senator John Ashcroft lost his bid for re-election to the U.S. Senate to the ex-governor of that state, Mel Carnahan. There was one problem, though. Mel Carnahan had died the month before. So in losing to a dead man, the GOP reacted by saying there was voter impersonation, voter fraud in southwestern Missouri. Missouri voters were impersonating dead people and voting multiple times. And this set off an investigation. Once John Ashcroft became Attorney General, he investigated voter fraud. And state legislatures saw the concern about voter fraud and passed voter identification laws, and they shorted the time that you could spend voting. They shorted the deadline where you had to register to vote and the like. All this based on the belief that there was rampant voter impersonation, voter fraud. But study after study, academic study, journalism study, even the studies of Ashcroft's own Justice Department found virtually no voter impersonation, voter fraud. So, what are we to make of this meme? Well, like I said before, part of the challenge of this meme is that it creates a partisan feedback loop. Republicans might literally believe that there is voter impersonation, voter fraud, or they might say this represents our views about how our election system is insecure. And they say these are common sense provisions designed to help our elections be secure. But Democrats often see it as this is a power grab. There is no voter fraud. Why are you trying to oppress minorities and the poor? And then the Republicans resent the implicit charge of racism, and the Democrats resent being called naive, and we go back and forth about this debate. And then the meme changes, and it re-energizes its grab on our democracy, and we see different versions of it. We see illegal immigrants accused of fake voting. We see wrongfully registered voters voting illegally. Again, the meme of voter fraud. We see felons accused of wrongfully voting. Again, the meme of voter fraud. We see, as we said before, dead people accused of voting. But one of the things that comes from my own research in this area is the realization that the justification for all of these things seems to boil down to fears of voting and scant anecdotes of voting, not hard proof. And the other thing, the thing that really disturbs me about this, is that this discussion is happening in an era of the browning of America. Demographers have told us that by 2040, if not before, America is going to be a majority of people of color. And given these two things, and one other thought, that these accusations often target, again, minorities and the poor, it makes me think that this isn't just about politics. This isn't just about who gets elected. It's a battle about the identity of American citizenship. Who gets to be an American? Who gets to be seen as someone less than a full American citizen? This is the debate that we are having when we talk about voter fraud. Now, it is a classic debate. This debate has gone on for as long as America has existed. Think about the Constitution. Think about the beginnings of this republic. The fact of the matter is that the national Constitution did not define the right to vote. It did not define who got to be a national citizen. That was left to the states. And in the 18th and 19th centuries, the early 19th century, that right to vote, that idea of full citizenship was given to white men who owned property. Women, minorities, the poor were deemed unable to judge their affairs well enough so that they did not deserve the full set of citizenship. I call this the ideology of exclusion. But at the same time, all the way from the Declaration of Independence, where we talk about all men are created equal, to today, there is also an ideology of inclusion, the idea that we are all capable of voting. So we see over history a long struggle to make our elections, to make citizenship more inclusive. And so we come to the point today where our laws say the right to vote should not be based on who you are, other than if you're a citizen. So, how does the meme of voter fraud relate to all that? The meme of voter fraud stirs up the debate between inclusion and exclusion, not because of what the laws say on their face, but because we worry about the effects of the laws. We worry that too many people will be wrongfully dissuaded from being able to vote. And it stirs up this debate about who is a threat and who is not a threat to American democracy. Now, the other problem is that it distracts us from real problems about American democracy. Consider There is vote buying. There is voter intimidation. There are problems with registration given antiquated registration rolls and looseness in the registration process. There's worries about Russian hacking that we have to deal with as a democracy. The meme of voter fraud seems to distract us from all of those real problems and make voter impersonation, voter fraud a concern, despite the fact that there is no evidence. There is virtually no evidence of such fraud. It distracts us from another thing, too. It distracts us from the fact that we all want to live together in this democracy. But to live together in this democracy, we have to reason about our democracy. And so the meme of voter fraud, the fear of the illegal voter who no one can find, makes us worry about whether our identity is at threat. Whether it be more conservative folks worried that their identity is being supplanted by another, or more liberal folks worried that the conservative folks are coming after them. We all get trapped in our fears. But then we forget that what the likelihood of an event happening because we fear it has no relation whatsoever to the actual likelihood of that event happening. We also forget that concerns about security of our elections and some concerns about making sure everyone is included in our elections are actually both essential to an effective American democracy. And we also forget that it's the politicians who have been running this system for a long time. Ever since America has been created, in those state legislatures, the politicians defined the rules about who gets to vote, and they use tactics like gerrymandering, poll taxes, literacy tests to figure out who is their electorate. And it takes us away from the way democracy is supposed to run, which is that the electorate, we the voters, figure out who our politicians, who our elected officials should be. The meme of voter fraud puts us into this partisan feedback loop where we're fighting each other and we go out to vote in order to continue that fight rather than solve the actual problems in our democracy. This distraction that happens because of this meme is imperiling us all. But there's a way out. There is a way out of this feedback loop. And what I want to share with you are my 3 thoughts on how to break out of the effects of the meme of voter fraud. First of all, and probably most important, we have to remember that memes work because they short-circuit our reasoning. We'd rather believe that Santa exists than confront the truth that you have to buy those presents yourself. In the same way, the meme of voter fraud puts our fears in front of us, whether they're conservative or liberal fears, rather than allowing us to focus on the real problems so that we can work together to find real answers. So we have to do what short-circuiting reasoning in any logic loop is. In other words, we have to ask why. Why are we afraid? What is it that is bothering us? Why is this meme motivating me? And then when it comes to voter fraud in particular, demand verifiable facts to answer the question about the meme. If we can start with facts, we can all agree on that basis, and then we can work together. Second, we have to realize that the concerns about security of the electorate and the concerns about ensuring that all citizens get included are actually part of the same concern. The inclusion-exclusion debate feeds off of that divide, but it's a false divide. When we realize that it's a false divide and we can work together to ensure that both concerns are answered, we can get to a more inclusive election with genuine election integrity. And finally, we have to remember that the questions that get raised by the meme of voter fraud are actually questions about what it means to live together in a democratic republic. What does it mean to live together in this community? What does it mean to be a citizen of this United States with a constitution that forbids discrimination on the basis of race, on the basis of gender, on the basis of age when it comes to voting? This is the realm of first questions. And when it comes to inclusive elections, the first question that you have to answer is, are regulations which create the right to vote genuinely inclusive to all citizens in such a way that we know the election is safe and fair? Because all citizens ought to be able to participate in this beautiful democracy. So, as I finish today, I simply leave you with this thought. I ask you to not disappoint the cat and work with me to break out of the rhetoric of voter fraud. Thank you.